Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's program, which we have, as usual, created with our members in mind. I am Frank Mulhern. I'm almost forgot my title, Chief Revenue and Development Officer here at Gilcrease. And I want to say thank you to each of you for joining us and for your support as a member. We know these are interesting times with the museum being under construction, but we're optimistic they're going to love to hear what Susan has to say tonight with our update and some other projects that we've been working on. But before we get started, as usual, for those of you that have been here before, I want to encourage you to engage with us by putting any questions you have during the presentation in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you've not done that before, it's a little button that you should be able to see quickly that says Q&A, and we will answer as many of these questions as we can at the end of our program tonight. So again, want to thank you for taking some time out of your evening tonight and what may be the last nice night of summer from what I saw in the weather last night. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Executive Director Susan Neal, who's going to share with you some of the latest updates here at Gilcrease Museum.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. And I echo Frank's comments and welcome. And appreciation to all of you for continuing to support Gilcrease Museum. I'd also like to thank not only Frank, but Leslie Bonaventura and JJ Cody, some staff who are helping make this production possible this evening. So I'd like to get started. I know your time is, of an evening is just as valuable as it can be. So again, thank you for joining us. So if we could go to the next slide, I think that would be a good start. Clearly, we think we have a very bright future ahead, and I am happy to tell you some of the encouraging news that we have this evening that is going to take us there. So if we could, just let me focus a minute on what we're going to share. We're going to talk a little bit about the construction update. I want you to understand how we're fundraising right now and how we hope to finish off this project. A little bit about the grounds and trails. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we get two questions when we're out in the community, which we are quite a bit through Gilcrease in Your Neighborhood. When are you going to open the museum, and when do the trails get built? So we know that people are interested in those. And also a conservation and reinstallation of the collection update. We have a lot of work to do in the conservation area in order to get big, to be ready for the new exhibits in the museum. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I would also like for you to know a little bit what we're doing in the research arena, both with Gilcrease staff and Helmrich Center staff, and what that means to our outreach nationally through scholarship. And then online collections, and then update there. Maybe you read something in the newspaper recently about that, but we'll touch on that briefly. And a traveling exhibit. All of the ways that we help keep Gilcrease not only in the minds of the local community, but how Gilcrease is going to be positioned nationally and with some global attention as well through our online collection. So if we could move to that next slide. I know everybody, many people drive by the construction site and walk around, and we thought we'd just share with you, for those who aren't able to do that, what this looks like. So to orient you to this aerial view, you can, I don't know if somebody can point to, maybe I can, I don't know. Yeah. Here is the Helmrich Center for American Research. The Thomas Gilcrease House in the foreground here, the parking lot, and then of course the new museum construction. And this is the half-finished amphitheater and the central utility plant here in the foreground. What I think is good about building up rather than just a sprawling museum all over this site is we are able to have actually some level ground around Gilcrease Museum, on which we hope to eventually have some gardens, maybe a teaching garden, but also some event space, because that would be right here in front of the museum. You can see where this circled drive was, where people were let out at the old museum, and then the front door was right there. And so all of this space is now created by moving the museum further to the west on the site. So again, how that is fully developed still needs to be thought through with a full master plan for the grounds, and we'll be talking about that in months to come. So to move on with the construction and a more detailed update of what's going on, that top slide is looking to the east towards downtown. And the bottom slide, of course, is looking also to the east, but really you get to see a much different view of the western side of the museum. So the upper level floor was actually poured in May. Topping out is scheduled for this next week. And the topping out ceremony is a ceremony that's over 500 years old, and roots are in a Scandinavian culture primarily, but there are also a number of indigenous cultures who have contributed to the traditions of a topping out ceremony. And the city is really hosting this with Flintco. On June 22nd, it is pretty much a media event. It is not open to the public, but there is a ceremonial raising of a beam with a tree on top of that beam that is symbolic of still maintaining your connection with nature and your connection with the land. So that will again be next week, but it is foreshadows the roof of the building being set on top of the building and built in the next 30 days. Foundations for the lower portion of the amphitheater are now in progress. The interior framing and layout is also in progress. And something that isn't on here, but I know is going to be happening over the next 30 days, is that they will begin to set in stone, literally, the exterior by putting the stone cladding on the outside of the eastern front, or eastern side of the museum. So it really will begin to start taking shape in a number of ways that I think we'll enjoy watching. So if we could continue, thank you. I think it's important that you all understand that we do have good news. The project is moving forward, and I'll call your attention to that very last bullet first. And that is that we have funding in hand to complete the exterior shell of the museum. And that is estimated by Flintco and the city to be finished. And that again is just the exterior building by late 2024. And again, funding in hand to do that. But there have been significant COVID and inflation impacts on this project, but we are not alone. That is evident in every public project that the city has been involved with, and there have been stories on that in the newspaper, and then on private sector projects. I think most recently, when I was talking with the Gilcrease Board of Trustees, which is also the Parks Board, there is a local hospital represented on that committee, and I've got nothing but sympathy for the impact that COVID has had on this project because of what it has meant for two clinics that this local hospital is building. They've experienced now well over 180 million of inflation's impact on their projects. And you may recall reading about the Veterans Hospital that is going to be built here in Tulsa. It's a wonderful project, and I'm so glad that it found a rescue in the National Defense Authorization Act near the end of 2022, because that project also was facing $31 million in an inflation impact. But again, they had the national rescue. We have no such safety net. So since our overall project costs were impacted to the tune of about 40%, and that really came in two chapters. The first chapter, there were some increased costs due to the early impacts of COVID with supply chain and labor issues. And that was, I think up through the summer of 2022, we felt good about having covered those additional building costs And then came all of the national conversation and awareness of pending inflationary increases that would no doubt have an impact on this project. Those really became evident near the end of 2022, and certainly those early inflationary pressures we were aware of in 2023. And the impact for Gilcrease was $33 million. And that brings our total project cost to $139 million as a result. And we'll talk a little bit, if we could move to the next slide, I'd like for you all to have some of the specifics as to why. That sounds like a lot because it is a lot, but the cost during this period of time that the city was needing to move forward with contracts, the cost for concrete and steel and mechanical and electrical and the exterior skin of this building, and I don't know, I have mechanical and electrical listed there twice, I'm so sorry. The exterior skin, all of those are integral to protecting this collection, not things that you can negotiate or value engineer out. And again, those costs really did skyrocket over that period of time. And we were told by Flintco, who builds, has construction projects going on all over the country simultaneously, that in an office building or a school, those same components would account for maybe only 45% of those types of projects and their costs. But for a museum or hospital who has really complex HVAC and mechanical systems, those account for about 70% of the project costs. And again, not things we could negotiate on. The building itself has about 22,275 tons of concrete have been used in this 92,000 square foot building, along with 106 tons of structural steel. And I can attest to that because I watch it being built and have the joy of watching it come together. But the amount of steel and concrete is, it's extraordinary. So there are good reasons behind that. And I guess if you can honestly believe the expression that misery loves company, at least we're not alone, but it nonetheless left us with that impact of $33 million. Over the course of the last year, since we learned that news, we have worked with the city, and through public and private additional funds, we have reduced that $33 million down to $20 million. And so when we look at this, and again, if you look at this chart here, you can see $139 million for the building budget. But if you reduce that deficit or that gap to $20 million, I think we have a story to tell you this evening as to how we're going to close that gap. The city of Tulsa, about 8 weeks ago, committed to putting $10 million in this upcoming Improve Our Tulsa package that is presented as a challenge grant. It's actually included as a challenge grant to the Gilcrease team if that passes on August 8th, then that will be considered a challenge grant to us that we will have needed to have raised an additional $10 million. So altogether, that would account for that $20 million gap. So the good news for us this evening is that we feel very comfortable with where we are included in that package and the amount of enthusiasm behind and support that I think the community feels for Improve Our Tulsa. I do encourage you to go vote yes on August 8th for all 3 ballots. But for the $10 million that Gilcrease is responsible for, and again, we've only been thinking about this for a few weeks, but we have already raised successfully $5 million of the $10 million that we need to support this $20 million gap. So leaving really only a total of $15 million. And again, if the city were successful with the IoT package, and then we also meet the remaining $5 million. Gilcrease Museum, not only will the building be built, but all of, if you go to the next slide, I will tell you what that remaining 20, whoops, I think that's probably not what I wanted to talk about. So if we could go to the slide after that, I think there's a one after, no, never mind. I'll just tell you what it means then. I've given another presentation today, and there was a different slide that actually included what that 20 million purchases, what it buys, why we need it in order to open the museum. If what we've raised to date finishes the exterior, then this remaining 20 million is what funds the exhibits. It funds the casework, construction of all of those cabinets, all of the furniture that holds the exhibitions and the objects. It funds the fabrication for all of the exhibitions. It pays for the media that is associated with, and there's quite a bit of media and technology in this new museum. We are going to appeal to multi-generations by making sure that we do have a lot of different ways of and points of access through different kinds of media. And it will pay for that. And then it will also pay for the reinstall of the collection. So I'm excited to know that maybe come August 8th, if we're all the stars in the universe align correctly, we will be able to really celebrate how we are going to complete Gilcrease. So when you talk about the exterior building being completed at the end of November, or excuse me, the end of 2024, if we do have success with both the private and public fundraising that gets us to this remaining $20 million, and we're well on our way. The public funding with the city will become available, I understand, in November. And the city can't contract for the fabrication or really go ahead and begin that work on the interior exhibits until all the money is in place. So that will be hopefully become available in November, late fall. And then if all goes well, we will see the exhibits finished out and the building can be open to the public after a few soft openings, maybe by the end of 2025 or early 2026. So I look at all of this as very good news. So moving forward now to this next slide. There's a phase 2 of the capital project. And right now, clearly all of our attention is focused on funding the core project, the building itself, and the day one grounds experience, the amphitheater, because all of that is included. But there are a number of outdoor amenities that from trails to a sculpture path and night garden, sky bridge and outdoor pavilion, the education wing, all of those are in some gardens and grounds. All of that was always planned for a phase 2. Some of it may come as we finish up with the funding that I just talked to you about. If we continue successful fundraising, some of those projects may start coming online and we can keep you apprised of that. But because we always get asked about the trails, I wanted to tell you that it's our intent to try to get those built by the time the museum opens. I know the city and certainly Gilcrease want to be mindful of conservation needs on this ground, and we want to be respectful of that. But there's a way to do that, and I would just call your attention to where the red outlines are at the bottom right corner of that slide. That is really where the museum is located, and then a little bit above that is Stewart Park. And then you see the green and blue lines. That's the 14 miles of hiking and biking trails that really have people excited about, they're excited about a lot of things about this project. But I would say this is something that really does generate a lot of community enthusiasm. It also helps Gilcrease in so many ways, where the city will be redoing Gilcrease Museum Road. And as part of that project, there will be a multi-purpose path that is, again, just adjoining, just running the length of that from Gilcrease all the way to the Katy Trail. And so Gilcrease will be connected recreationally to the trail system that runs throughout Tulsa County, and to all of the other many cultural opportunities that are already on Tulsa's trail system, whether it's River Parks, the Gathering Place, downtown, what's happening in downtown Sand Springs, Jinx Aquarium. It's a wonderful opportunity to see Gilcrease connected again, culturally and recreationally, with so many other opportunities here in Tulsa. And we know, if you've been to Bentonville, what these trails have meant for their museums attendance and for bringing people to not just the museum, but to really enjoy nature in Northwest Arkansas. So just wanted you to be aware of that, because we do get so many questions on that. So if we could go to the next slide. So in preparation for the new museum, yes, we are busy wrapping up script writing. You know, the staff has already identified all of the objects that are to be included in the new galleries. But writing scripts, doing the research, getting all of the labels ready is one part of it. The other part of it is getting all of the paintings and sculptures and different, I know we also have a lot of conservation to do on documents, but we have approximately 200 paintings that will be on display when the new museum opens. And many of them need conservation treatments before reinstallation, because we do want to put the museum's best foot forward. So 13 initial paintings have been identified as priority, and they total about $200,000. Many museums, in addition to a label that describes a painting, also creates a little bit of recognition for someone who helps fund the conservation of the painting. And so we would probably be in a position to do that as well, should we have donors who want that kind of recognition. But that's something that we'll be getting very creative about as we seek to get all of this conservation, these conservation needs met. It's important too, because it will include works that have never been displayed. So if we could move forward. An example, this is one of our masterwork, most loved, most well-known pieces by Thomas Moran, Shoshone Falls, and the scope of the conservation that is needed on this one painting is so significant. It's huge. And it will require Gilcrease conservators and contract conservators to complete this in time for opening. It's important that we care for the collection, and like I said, put our best foot forward. But for this painting alone, the conservation is $115,000. So again, just giving you an idea, not just of the expense of reopening associated with every aspect of the museum, but the amount of work that has to be done by the staff and also some consultants to get us where we need to go. So we can move forward now. So I said I would talk a little bit about research. There is so much happening in the last, I'd say, really since August. We've always had a library that was well respected, and we've enjoyed having it at the Helmrich Center for American Research because it gave it a safe and much improved environment. But since I've been here, it's been really clear to me that the library wasn't as accessible as it should be to the public, to scholars, even to the community. And so for years, absolutely years, when I would ask, how many scholarly or on-site research visits did we have this year? It was always the same, 100, 99, 103, seldom varied. And we have worked with Dr. William Smith at Associate Director of the Helmrich Center, and the team of people that I feel very proud that he and I put together to work on the library and the archive and making it more accessible. And since August of this year, we've had 213 on-site research visits. So we know we can do it. We've doubled it in a relatively short period of time. And we just have really focused on hiring a collaborative staff that is really focused on access and collaboration. So again, headed in the right direction there. An exciting new member of the team will join us. He was selected as the Dwayne H. King postdoctoral fellowship. Dr. Ben Pocross, who joined us from, I think he hails from Yale. University and comes to us by way of Yale. But when he is here, I know when he arrives in August, we will make sure that he has a chance to present his research and why he is here, the research that he will be working on with our members, and also an inside out opportunity. And then just so you'll know, we are really focused on having a lot more scholars use the collection. So in 23 and 24, the Helmholtz Center will host 3 traveling grant recipients and 5 short-term fellows. The other thing that I can tell you is we have put online in the last, I don't know if that's in the next slide. Let's see. Yeah. You may have read in the Tulsa World here about 10 days ago that Gilcrease has added 4,700 new items to its online collection. And not only was there a wonderful story on the front page of the Tulsa World Scene section, we promoted this opportunity to the larger art world nationally, and it was picked up by, I believe, 461 outlets, and we're really excited about getting that kind of recognition for Gilcrease Museum. But we were able to do this research, the conservation work that was needed on these 3 collections by getting the funding from the Henry Luce Foundation and an IMLS grant a little bit later down the line. Both of those grants totaled $1.2 million. And we've had consulting scholars, a lot of original research that we have done on these items. And again, this is really going to inform not just how we present these items in the new Gilcrease Museum, but how the rest of the world researches and what they can learn about these items. And again, we're excited about what this means to the larger story. So I hope you'll take a look at the online collections when you have a minute. So if we could move on. Another way that we are keeping Gilcrease at least alive and well in kind of a national or more global landscape is at the national level. We started this 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID, and we knew that there was a lot of interest in Gilcrease having a traveling exhibition while the museum was closed. And though it has taken a long time, we partnered with the American Federation of Arts, and they travel American art collections throughout the country for at any number of locations, and some international travel, but mostly in the United States. The joy for us in partnering with them is the size of our staff doesn't lend itself to hiring a totally new set of registrars and prep staff who would prepare a traveling exhibit. The American Federation of Arts provides that staff. And then you just provide the exhibits, the artwork, and the education component that will go with the exhibit. So if we could go to the next slide. All congratulations and kudos to Dr. Chelsea Herr on our team. She is the Jack and Maxine curator, Jack and Maxine Zero, curator of Indigenous art and history here at Gilcrease Museum. And she has been in partnership with another curator, Dr. Janet Catherine Burlow, with the University of Rochester. They have co-curated Past Forward, 3 millennia of Native American art, and it will have 117 items. 70 will be on display at any given venue. And again, marketing this during COVID was a real setback, and it's only been recently that museums are really starting to pick up. And but at the time that we were needing to sign a contract, we were fortunate, we thought, to get these 3 venues And how we ended up with these venues is the American Federation of Arts has a number of people who vet an exhibit to determine if this is an exhibit that will really make a great show. And everyone who was on the vetting committee wanted it to come to their venue. So that's how we ended up. That's how, well, we didn't choose the venues. The third venue has been selected, and it's the Center for Four Arts in Palm Beach. So again, but those are, that is the governance part of the American Federation of Arts. But I do congratulate our team, particularly Dr. Herr, in getting this exhibit and accepted, and having Gilcrease at least on the display in some other locations and exhibited elsewhere in the United States. So the other things that I know we've done to be having loans out there before we had to impose a moratorium, again, size of staff and so forth. We did get loans made to MoMA, the DeYoung Museum, Crystal Bridges, and the Cowboy Hall of Fame. So we've done what we said we would do, is to make sure that we keep Gilcrease alive, at least with some other museums and some other venues. If we could go to the next slide, I would also want to talk a little bit. This will show you some of the works that will be included, whether it's pottery, so the wonderful piece that Dr. King did an entire exhibit around, I think, the artist escapes me. Right. Someone help me here. Anyway, that we've never loaned these pieces to anywhere. And we've never done an exhibit of Native American work. When I say we've certainly loaned Native American works of art, but we've never loaned an exhibit and created an exhibit around Indigenous exhibition items. So if we could go to the next slide real quick. I would say that before we talk about the upcoming events, there are other ways that we are keeping Gilcrease Museum alive, certainly in the local scene, and that is through Gilcrease in Your Neighborhood. And we've had about 56 programs with the community since we launched Gilcrease in Your Neighborhood last October. And we have over 50 partners that we've throughout the community that we've had events with, and that are part of the locations that host this pop-up museum experience that came out of the Community Advisory Council's recommendation, and a great way to keep Gilcrease in front of the community. And it has proven to be so. We have had 16,000 people participate in the programs, but where we really have seen an increase of engagement is on our social media, which has increased in some different categories by 200 and 300%. And even for people who aren't participating in Gilcrease in Your Neighborhood, people know about it. And I hear people say, I think that is so cool that you're doing this this pop-up exhibit. And I said, well, have you participated in the programs? Well, no, but I just think it's the best thing. And what really happens is those other venues help us promote this exhibit, this pop-up exhibit on their websites. And when it appears, reproduction of Gilcrease artwork appears in locations like Turkey Mountain or Chandler Park, people take selfies and they promote it. So it's just been a great magnification of the collection and a magnification of how Gilcrease is staying engaged with and still serving the community. And we're still working and providing a number of arts experiences in partnership with schools and libraries as well. So the upcoming events, I might have Frank touch on a few of the highlights. If your children are interested in camps, please get on this gilcrease.org events. It is for children who are a little bit older, and it will be at the AHA Center downtown. And they will be led by Mary McNett. And there's still a few openings in those camps. Frank, if you want to say anything about the members only reception on July 15th, please do. But I do encourage you all to get on the website and look for those events.
Okay.
And our next Gilcrease Inside Out is September 12th. So do you have anything you want to say about the members only reception?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get to that though, White Swan is what you were looking
White
for.
Swan, thank
Yeah.
you.
One of, I think,
You would have
7.
thought I would remember that because we heard about it, a lot about it.
We did. We
From,
got a complete thorough lecture from Dr. King,
Yeah.
well, many years ago now, but
like,
one of 6, I think, that he had done, and we have one of them. So
I remember
obviously Gilcrease Inside Out is happening on a regular basis still, so we hope you'll make plans to tune in on September 12th. We'll hear a little bit more from our curators, Chelsea Hearn, Laura Fry. Our members only reception, if you've been to any of the Gilcrease in Your Neighborhood receptions so far, this is going to be somewhat similar. We're going to focus on the next piece in the 3-part series, which is Gathering Corn. And we're going to take Gilcrease to the Broken Arrow neighborhood for this event. And we're going to host this event on the 15th of July at Arts 302 in Broken Arrow. Invitations for you members to attend are actually in the printing/mailing process right now. So you should be able to get those in the next week or so, based on what the printer's telling us. So some other activities there that are listed, as Susan said, some of these are for adults, some for children, but obviously you can go to the event section of our homepage and see the full list of events that are available to you at any point in time. And I think with that, we will turn to some of the questions that we have. All right. Question number 1, will the topping out ceremony be on Zoom for members?
You know, it's an thank you for that question. The answer is unfortunately no. It's hard to do a topping out ceremony where a crane is raising a beam on top of a building. But it is a very limited space. It truly is going to be a media event, and what constricts the space is the amount of parking that we have, and the fact that it's a construction site. So again, the media is certainly going to cover it, we know, and this is the city's celebration of this construction, their project, meeting this important threshold. And I know that there will be a countdown to a raising of a beam, and beam will have a tree on top of it, which is, like I said, symbolic of a number of the, I understand that tradition has many cultures. I mean, has many mothers in a number of different cultures. And so it would be a hard thing to do on a Zoom. So I'm sorry that it won't be, but you will certainly hear a lot about it in the media.
Another question for you. Will the Pass Forward exhibition be displayed at Gilcrease at a later date?
We have talked about just, bringing that home in time, and would it possibly be something that we would go ahead and install here? I think the works that as the conservator tells me, those works need to rest, but at a later date, absolutely. And there will be a beautiful catalog with that exhibit that we're very excited about as well. So yes, if there's, and a lot of those works, when they come home, they might not be in the Pass Forward, packaged as part of the Pass Forward exhibit right away. But for those that aren't on paper, works on paper, and that don't need to rest, some of those will actually be a part of the exhibits that we will open with. They just won't be in the Pass Forward.
Unfortunately, we have no shortage of wonderful pieces like that to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. Oh, a fundraising question. How confident are you in raising the remaining $5 million of your goal?
This is not an option. We will not fail. I'm very confident. Tulsans have supported this with the public dollar and with the private dollar. And I think the mayor called me. I had some surgery on I know the date. I had some surgery on the 15th of April or the 14th of April. And I think he'd let me know a few days before that, that the public inclusion of 10 million matching grant was, he was thinking about doing that. And we would need to begin to pursue that 10 million. And I explained, probably wasn't going to happen right away, but even with a 6-week, only working from home and part-time recovering from a knee replacement, I think Frank and I have been successful in raising the 5 million relatively quickly. And we also have a handful of appointments and conversations that are already ongoing, and feel hopeful and confident that we can get there. So, and again, it's not an option. Gilcrease needs to be finished, and I think the Tulsa community is 100% behind it.
Okay, great. We actually only have one other comment, not a question. So apparently you've done a great job of explaining everything.
Oh, good.
Front end of the presentation. Thanks again for all you continue to do.
Oh, well,
That's the comment.
that's the comment. Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's an honor to be leading Gilcrease even through these challenging times. And it's also not a show of one. It is truly a show of great, I think it's a demonstration of great teamwork at the staff level. And we have about 35 staff members right now. And when we get to a peak period again, we will probably have, operating. We hope to have much higher numbers of maybe 80, 90 people. But in the meantime, it's this very hardworking, dedicated staff that's making all this work. And I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to work with them. And I lied. Another question came in that I didn't see. Back to the financial side of things. Inflation is reported to be slowing, yet there are many further costs. There may be further further increases in costs. Are our purchases of construction materials now fixed and no longer vulnerable to inflation-driven increases? So we scrub that budget on a regular basis. And I say we, the city, Flint Co., Smith Group, the architects, and so many of those contracts for the construction of the building have been let. And yes, we are locked in on just about everything. There are some things that have happily surprised us that have, that the inflation pressure there is a little relief, but at the time that when those contracts needed to be let, probably at its peak. And we are locked in, and we also know where any future savings can be realized. But we don't ever stop thinking about scrubbing the numbers and making sure that we are still within that $20 million budget. When we go to the public and say we need 10 more, and we go to the private sector and say we need 10 more, we have told ourselves we have to be absolutely sure that we can cover what is needed. So that's such a good question, and I shared your concern, and that's why we have a budget meeting yet again. I believe it's this week. Make sure that we are tracking with this project, just like we planned. Anything can happen. I know that. I've learned that through COVID, but so far we are tracking. Okay, well, that is officially the last question that we have. Susan, thank you so much for spending the time to update everyone on all the great progress here. I know it's hard for everybody to not be able to visit Gilcrease Museum, but we promise Flintco's working as fast as they can, and we're doing as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to secure this final tranche of funding. So the time is coming, promise. Let's pop those upcoming events on the screen one more time if we could. And I wanted to also, JJ, if you could take a look at the chat. I've dropped a link for everybody to see and be able to hopefully click on or take a quick screenshot of. Susan and Laura were recently on KWGS with a great piece on the 3 online collections that Susan spoke about. In fact, it aired today for the first time and is
being maybe rebroadcast at 7:30, I think is when it comes on KWGS. So you have time to check that out live on 89.5 if you want. But if you want to listen, if you can't wait to hear Susan's voice again, click the link and catch that interview with Rich Fisher, who always does a fantastic job with his interviews here locally. So again, thank you to each of you for your ongoing support. We are so grateful for all that you do and for being the lifeblood of the museum. Everything that we're doing here, we're doing for you guys. We're doing for the larger community. So thank you for being a part of it. And until we meet again in this format, have a great evening and enjoy your summer. Good night.
Thank you all so much.